as well. Now, I want us to have a look at the API token authentication part, how we're going to issue API tokens, how also we're going to perform the registration, which is basically pretty much the same thing what is already done in registered user controller. But the thing is that we are not going to perform authentication in the following part. But first, let's have a look at the authentication part in this Sanctum documentation. So first we need to implement, we need to use has API tokens trait on the user model. So let's do this. We're going to open user PHP and we are going to use the trait has API tokens. Okay, that's first thing what we need to do. After which, let's go here. After which we can already start creating tokens with the following logic. Okay, then user might have multiple tokens. We are going to assign the token name and we can optionally assign some token abilities to the token. And once we create the token, we are going to return that token as plain text token to the user. Okay, so this is pretty interesting and also pretty easy as well. Let's go into registration part and I'm going to remove this auth login because we don't want the login and it's not going to actually do anything. So what we do is that we create the user in the following way and we can simply return just created user information, or we can simply return no content, which means that the user is created, there's nothing we can do anymore. Okay, so this is the first step. And actually, let's try to do this. Now, I'm going to click on these collections and I'm going to create new collection, blank collection, and let's give it name also. Actually, we can give it name from here, Laravel REST API. Okay, awesome. Next, we're going to create request inside this Laravel API, and that request is going to be register. So we are making request on localhost port 8000 API, and then we have a register. If we have a look inside auth.php, which is already part of API PHP, we can see that the URL is register. So we are making request into register. Okay, let's go into headers section and we're gonna add accept to be application JSON, and we're gonna add content type to be application just JSON as well. Now let's go into body and we can send body as a row or as a XWWW form URL encoded as you want. So we're going to provide name. And actually we already have one user in the database, which is Zura. So let's create John. Name is John. Email is going to be john@example.com. And we're going to provide password as well. However, let's provide the password from 1 to 6. However, this is not going to work and we're going to get the validation errors. First of all, we're sending the get method. Let's change this into post and make request. And now we're going to see this validation error on the password because password field confirmation doesn't match. So if we have a look in the registered user controller in the store method, we're going to see a couple of rules added on each properties like name, email, and password. So I think this is pretty clear. Inside email, required string, lowercase, email, and maximum 255. And also that email must be unique among users table email column. Email column is automatically detected by the property name. All right, so you can have a look at the whole validation rules in the Laravel official documentation. You can search for validation here. Just click on this and then search for rules on the right side. Available validation rules. That's it. And you can find everything here, including this unique. Let's go back into Sanctum documentation. And the password, it's required and confirmed. That confirmed makes sure that there is password confirmation property also in the request. And we have another rule, rules password defaults, which means that the password must be minimum 8 characters, it must contain uppercase, lowercase symbols, and so on. So we have all these rules. Now let's open Postman and we can see these two validation rules we are failed. First, we don't have this password confirmation, which is something we need to do. So I'm going to pass password confirmation. and this is going to be from 1 to 6. All right, so send the request. Now we're going to have one more validation rule failed, that the password must be at least 8 characters. We provide 7 and 8, 7 and 8, and we send the request, and now it is going to work. Actually, that defaults method doesn't have all that kind of validation rules, as I mentioned, like the lowercase, uppercase letters, and so on. But that's very basic. However, we can provide additional methods like letters. We can provide that the password must contain letters, and we can provide how many letters it should have as well. I think through the argument, not through the argument, but through a different way. So we can provide numbers as well, that the password must contain letters, numbers. We can provide some special characters as well. We can provide how many symbols the password should be minimum, and so on. So we have a couple of options. Actually, if I simply delete this default, and then we can define this letters and numbers and so on. Anyway, so there is ability to define that strong password, but for now, let's leave this into defaults. Okay. And since we provided 8 character password right now, the user is created, we see 204 status code. Now we can already try to authenticate with this email and password and generate the token. However, we're going to take a look at the login controller. Okay, let's see. We are using custom login requests, then request authenticate, then session regenerate, which is something we totally need to remove. And then we are returning no content. Okay, we have to change this part. Once the authentication is done, and which means that this authenticate method, okay, I have to explain everything about this authenticate method, but for now, let's just imagine that this checks the email and password, and if it's true, it's going to perform the authentication. If not, then it's going to simply return with invalid status code. But once the authentication is done, we have the user information inside request user. Okay, this is what we need. Then on that user, we can call create. Actually, I'm gonna have a look in the documentation. Issuing API tokens. So we added the trait, scroll down below. On that request user, we're gonna call create token and provide the token name. So let's come into our VS Code, and on that user, we're gonna call create token. We're gonna provide the name. We can call this whatever we want, but for simplicity, I'm just gonna give it a main as a name of the token. And once the token is created, we're gonna get this through plain text token. So we're gonna get this token as a plain text, but after this, that token will be saved in the database as encrypted token, and we will not be able to get that as plain text token anymore. So once we show this to the user, there is no other way user to see that token. Okay, awesome. Now, since we performed the authentication and we generated the token, I'm going to do the following. I'm going to return the authenticated user information through new user resource and provide the authenticated user, and I am going to return the token as well. And I'm going to change this into JSON response as well. Let's change this. This is going to be illuminate HTTP response, and well, because we are returning array, I think we can completely remove the part. Okay, that's fine as well. We are returning an array, we can specify that we are returning array from here as well. That's fine. Or if we decide that we are going to return this JSON response, then we have to convert this into JSON using response JSON. However, we might return some mixed things from here, and the Laravel is actually responsible for everything. So I'd rather just don't mention what I'm returning from here. Okay, or maybe we can write array again. Okay, cool. Now we're going to focus on this authenticate part, what this actually does. Okay, I'm going to open this login request, and we're going to have a look. So this is typical form request, which has authenticate true, and it has validation rules as well, email and password. Scroll down below, and it has this authenticate method. and what this does. So it uses rate limiting functionality as well. Through this method, ensure is not rate limited. So I will explore this method as well, but for now, you can simply think that this checks that the user has not made too many requests in short period of time with incorrect credentials. So if the user made too many requests in a short period of time with incorrect credentials, then we're going to simply get the exception. Okay, so ensure is not rate limited. Look at this, and it's checking if the user has not made 5 requests in this short period of time. This throttle key is simply a unique text taken from the user's email address and the IP address. Simply convert this into a lowercase and run this into a transliterate method simply to remove any malicious characters from there and to make this email and IP address concatenation fully safe for caching. And we are using this caching through rate limiter, too many attempts. Okay, if this is false, then we return. So it means rate limit wasn't hit. However, if this is true, and then the code comes here, and we are checking in how many seconds user is able to send the request again, and we are throwing this validation exception with this message. Let's go into a login request right now. Actually, let's do a second API endpoint. I'm going to duplicate this. This is the second. Let's call this login. The headers must be there. Inside the body, we're going to send only email and password. And the URL needs to be login. So I'm going to save that endpoint as well. Now I'm going to change the password and provide a different password. Okay, so send one. We get this 422. The credentials do not match our records. Second request, third request, fourth request, 5, and 6. Now, too many login attempts. Please try again in 46 seconds. Again, please try again in 33 seconds. So this is exactly what is done right here. Okay, so that's the whole story. We're going to talk about rate limiting, by the way, in this course. And I'm going to give you examples how you can add the rate limiting into your application. But for now, this is what it does. Let's go back. And if the rate limited is not hit, and if the exception is not thrown, basically, then here we try to authenticate user with email and password. And if there's a remember field, we're passing this as well, but we don't have remember field right now. If the login attempt was not successful, then we save inside the rate limiter that user tried one time authentication with incorrect credentials. Okay, and we throw this validation exception with this message, auth failed message, and that auth failed message has this translation: credentials do not match our records. Okay, however, if the authentication wasn't successful, then from the rate limiter we clear all incorrect authentication attempts, and the authentication does its job without throwing an exception. And this auth attempt method also sets the request user variable. So if this doesn't throw an exception, and if it returns normally, then we know for sure that we have request user. We take that user, create the token, return that token. Okay, I'm going to scroll down below and implement logout as well, because that's important part. Instead of this auth web logout, we don't have the web guard anymore. We don't have sessions. We don't have anything. Okay, so what we're going to do again, take the current user from request user, and that on that user, we're going to access current access token, and then we're going to call delete on that current access token. And finally, we're going to return with no content. Okay, so let me save this, and now I'm going to make request with correct credentials. So I'm going to hit on send. Look at this. So we received the user information, we received the token. Now I'm going to take the token and provide the token to all subsequent requests. Okay. However, we also need to add the authentication part into our API endpoints. I'm going to click on collections. This is the Laravel REST API collection. I'm going to click on this as well, and I'm going to go into the auth part. Inside auth part, I'm going to choose bearer token, and I'm going to paste this token. And I will explain what this actually does. But I'm going to duplicate this login, and I am going to change this get posts. I'm going to change this method into get, and I'm going to change the URL into v1 posts. Okay, we send the request and the posts are received. Okay, fine. Let's save this. Now we're going to add the authentication part into our API endpoints. So for this, we're going to open API PHP, and just like we are using this auth sanctum middleware on the user, we're going to add this middleware to all the API endpoints we have right here, for which we need basically authentication. So we can delete this hello when we don't need this anymore, right? Okay, this is what I'm going to do. Root middleware, we provide this auth colon sanctum, right? Then I'm grouping everything and providing function here. Okay, then I'm going to take my v1 and put this inside this middleware group. And I can also take this get current user information and put this inside this middleware as well. Now, look what happens. So everything right here is protected under this auth sanctum middleware. But if I come here and send the request, that still works. How? Because if we click on the authorization part, we see that the authorization type is taken from parent, and the parent is the collection. So we added the authorization on the collection. That's a Postman specific thing. So if I go into get posts again, and if I add no auth, so I'm not sending any authentication information, click on send, we see 401 unauthorized. In order to actually make the request and get the information through the through JavaScript, through PHP, whatever, into our REST API, so we are going to send authorization header. Authorization header, and then we have to provide bearer space and that token, what was taken, what was returned in the login request. Again, let's go into login request, and this is the token. So I'm going to take that token without these double quotes, go into get posts, and right here I'm going to paste that token. Now, if I send the request, we see all these posts, 200 status code. If I click on this and add extra symbol inside the token is not valid anymore. Send the request, we see 401. Okay, and for simplicity, because we want authentication on all the API endpoints, so I simply deleted that and I added this into the collection, and through the authorization, we can set this inherit auth from parent. But the whole idea is that the Postman has a shorthand version of sending the authorization header. So whatever I did right here, providing the authorization with the bearer token, Postman does exactly this by providing this authorization, bearer token, and the token right here. That's my token. Okay, so far so good. Now we added authorization part in our application. We have now endpoints to get the post. We can duplicate this and let's give it name create a post. We're going to switch this into post method. The endpoint stays the same. Inside the body, we are going to provide post title to be post title 1 or 11 body, and this is going to be post body 11. So again, let's send the request. Authorization part again is taken from the parent, so the bearer token is passed through these headers. We see right here the headers we gave it, and we see 9 hidden headers as well. If I show those hidden headers, we can see everything else, and authorization as well through this bearer. I'm not sure if we can reveal that. Yeah, we can reveal that information that is passed through this shortcut version of this authorization. Really cool, really awesome. New post was created with post title 11, post body 11, right? Okay, great. Now if I go into get posts again and send the request, we're gonna get all the posts, including the one what we just created. Actually, we see only 2 posts, because in the post controller, where is post controller? Let's open the post controller. We have this paginate into 2. So I'm going to remove this, return 15, all of them, click on send, and at the bottom of the post list we have this. Where it is. Okay, we said we have so many posts. So, and here we see this post title 11, the last one what we created. Okay, however, here we are returning all the posts, right? But we want to return only posts that belongs to the currently authenticated user. So we're going to get the currently authenticated user information here. Okay, I'm going to take out this here, and I'm going to assign this into posts. And then I'm going to get the currently authenticated user information. That should be posts. And we're going to pass posts here. But I'm going to get the currently authenticated user information, or user ID, and there are a couple of ways. So I can use request here, and then access the user information from request user, or I can use auth facade, this one, and then this auth has a couple of methods, like ID is one of the methods to get the currently authenticated user ID, or it has this user method as well. So I'm giving you all the possibilities. Or we even have global request method, and that request has user here as well to get the user information. Okay, we have different options. Now, since we have the user, now we can add where clause here, or, you know, I'm going to do it differently. On that user, I'm going to call posts and then paginate. Actually, we can call also with author if we want. Actually, we don't want, but we can do it. Semicolon is missing here. Now I'm going to save this, and I'm going to send the request, and I'm going to get an error first. We need like this. We need this parenthesis as well, because we're going to access this as a query builder with author paginate. That's it. Now we see empty data because this is the new user. This is user John, and John actually doesn't have any posts. The post was which was created through the user John even was not created John, because we have hard-coded author ID here, 1. Okay, so we're going to change that part as well. We don't want this author here, by the way, and I'm going to remove this, but let me actually change that part. We have request, so I can use request user ID. I'm going to take the authenticated user's ID and put this inside author ID. Now, if I create a new post for John, which was created, then I go into get posts and send the request. I'm going to get 1 post which was created for John, and that 1 post also contains the author information, which is something we don't want. That's why I'm going to remove this with author. You can add it if you want, but I don't need that, so I'm going to remove that part. Click on send. Now I get post information without author. Okay, so index is perfect. We're getting all the posts for the authenticated user. Create is great. Now, to get a single post for the user, we're going to do some checks. So I'm going to get the currently authenticated user information through request user, and then I'm going to check if the currently authenticated user's ID is different from the post ID, it means that I am trying to view a post which belongs to somebody else. Before I do anything here, I'm going to comment out this. Now, user John has only one post which has ID 9, right? But I will try to view a single post with ID 2. Look at this, I got this. So this belongs to a different user, but I got this because we don't have that check. Now I'm going to add this check, and if this happens, I'm going to call a function called abort. We can provide a status code like 403, and with some message like access forbidden. Now we make the request and we see 403 status code access forbidden, because the current user doesn't have permission to view that specific post information. However, the current user can view post 9. Let's use this double equality here. Oh, wait, hold on. Not post ID, but post author ID, of course. Look at this. Now the user can view post with ID 9, but not post with ID 2, 3, up to 8. What just happened? Yeah, access forbidden. Okay, so we can simplify this, and we have abort if function as well. That's shorthand version. The first argument is the condition. So abort should be called if this condition was satisfied, if the authenticated user ID doesn't belong to the auth ID. The post's author ID. Actually, I'm going to even simplify this, and I'm going to use auth facade ID here, and I'm going to delete this line. If the authenticated user ID doesn't belong to post author ID, we return with forbidden. Now I'm going to put this in a couple of other places. We're going to put this in the update place, because we are not allowed to update the post if that post does not belong to me. And in the destroy place as well, we are not allowed to delete the post if that post doesn't belong to me. Now we have all the validation rules in place. Not the validation rules, but the security checks. Now let's go into Postman and let's add those endpoints. So we have get posts, we have create posts, create a single post. I'm going to add another endpoint, which is going to be get a single post, where we're going to provide the post ID. Let's provide 9. Get, that works. Let's add update post as well. Update a post. We're going to send put request on the following URL and send. The title field is required. Let's go into body. That's correct. So we're going to provide title and body, and that's going to be updated title. This is going to be updated body. Okay, and finally is going to be deleting of a post. Actually, we have to save those because we're duplicating. We have this bullet. So I'm going to save this update. I'm going to save this create, and I'm going to save this. That should be actually get all posts. So this is how it should be. And I'm going to close all the tabs right now. And this is going to be delete a post. If you didn't follow, no worries. I'm going to show you everything. Now the post was deleted, 204. Great. Save it. Now let's go into collections. Look at this. So we have register, login, post requests. We have get posts with get method, create a post with post method, get a single post with get method, update a post, and delete a post. And that's basically all what we needed. And one thing probably we're missing is the logout. So I'm going to duplicate login as well. We're going to make post request into logout API endpoint, and we're going to call this logout as well. Save it. Here we see logout. I'm going to click on send. We are not authorized to perform the logout. Strange. Why? Okay. Yeah, I think I know why this happens. I'm going to hide all the other headers. Let's go into auth PHP and find the logout section, which has a different middleware. It has auth middleware. It doesn't have auth sanctum middleware. And this is what we're going to change. From auth into auth sanctum, I'm going to copy this and replace every other place where we have just auth without auth sanctum. I'm going to save that. Let's perform logout again. Now that worked. We see 204 status code. And if after this we try to get posts, which internally is using this old authorization token, which was actually deleted because of the logout, we are going to see unauthorized because that token is not valid anymore. After which we have to call a login request again if we want to authorize and get the proper